Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. HBO just announced there's another new Game of Thrones spinoff that they're working on, and it's closer to actually happening than some of the other many spinoffs that they've already talked about. So based on the announcement, we have a pretty good idea for which event it's going to cover and who the main characters are going to be, so we'll break it all down. Of course, I will do episode videos for it when it releases. I'll be in my 90s someday, still talking about the latest Game of Thrones prequel series. They'll probably have rebooted the main series a couple times by then, too. They have enough prequels, spin-offs, and sequels in development to keep this running till the heat death of the universe. What a coincidence that the new sword that I just got, Blackfire, based more on the book version of the sword, is actually relevant to this new mystery show, so I won't be using Longclaw as much when we get those episodes. Right now, the current other spin-offs and prequels HBO is working on legit are House of the Dragon Season 3, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms Season 1, Aegon's Conquest, and based on the way they worded their new announcement here, they made it sound like this new mystery show is the closest one to be next after that. There was a little confusion because a lot of people wondered if they were just referring to the Aegon's Conquest series that they announced last year. They started working on around this time in February as of me posting this video in 2024, so they've already been going with that for a while. The wording on this new announcement made it sound like this was a brand new, unannounced project that they had never talked about before, which is why we think it's like a completely separate event. They did confirm that it was Targaryen Focus, another major event from their history in Fire and Blood. They confirmed that it was going to be another really big budget show on the level of House of the Dragon in the original series, not like Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. That was the juxtaposition that they offered for comparison, a smaller, more intimate show with a shorter run. So all the other spin-offs they're working on are really big budget, much longer runs. And because we pretty much know everything from the Targaryen history now, this narrows it down quite a bit as to what this mystery show is, because there are only other couple major events in Targaryen history that would be big enough, cinematic enough to sustain a long-running, large-scale TV series that they haven't already announced. They already announced the Aegon's Conquest series. I'm not expecting to actually get episodes for that till at least like 2028, 2029, like it'll be a long time before we see episodes for that. George R. R. Martin already revealed that they were developing a Doom of Valyria or Valyria series early on, then abandoned that idea for now, temporarily just canceled essentially behind the scenes, but they could always bring that back in the future. I know there are a lot of people out there that would love to see an ancient Valyria-based series. Outside of those two things and what they've already announced that they're doing right now, there's really only two other things that it probably is. The Blackfire Rebellion, I'm talking about the first Blackfire Rebellion, the biggest one, and Robert's Rebellion. Pretty much the entire internet would love to see Robert Baratheon in his prime before he turned into this hot, sweaty mess. Looks like he could use about 10 sticks of deodorant. Speaking of which, thank you to Mando for sponsoring this video. Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It's a high-performance, whole-body deodorant that you can apply everywhere, up top, down below, even on your feet. You have no idea how hot it gets in this room when I record videos. It's like a furnace. Mando makes sure my YouTube room here doesn't smell like a swamp at the end of the day. And it's clinically proven to control odor better than a regular shower with soap and lasts for the entire day. It comes in 4 different scents: Bourbon Leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. And there's a 5th unscented version. If I'm doing a lot of workouts during a week, Pro Sport is probably my go-to, but if I'm working on a ton of videos or I'm going to be inside my YouTube room in a small enclosed space for a long time, I'll go with the unscented version. It can keep you from stinking like a swamp for up to 72 hours. It's skin-safe, baking soda-free, cruelty-free, pH optimized for any part of your body, and it won't stain your clothes. Their starter pack comes with a full-size stick of deodorant, a cream deodorant tube or spray, and 2 free products like wipes or mini body wash. There's free shipping in the US, and they're offering everybody on my video here an extra $5 off when you order using the link in the description below or enter the code AWESOME5 at checkout. That winds up being a 40% off deal, so be sure to try it out so that you don't have to make up clever excuses anymore when people who sit next to you ask why it smells like someone just died. Right now, my conspiracy theory, based on what HBO and George R. R. Martin have said in the past, this new mystery series would more likely be the Blackfire Rebellion. Mostly because they've said in the past that they weren't as eager to redo something that they already did on the main show relatively recently, meaning they felt like they covered a lot of Robert's Rebellion on the main show with the flashbacks, in the way that people remembered it, discussed it all the time with the other characters on the main show. HBO could have changed their minds on not redoing Robert's Rebellion and just decided, no, we want the money, because it'd be a really easy slam dunk for them to just do that as a big budget series. You get your big battles, you get your deeper character drama between familiar great houses, and you get to bring back familiar characters that the audience loves, but in younger form. Like, you can recast younger versions of most of the actors because they'd all be teenagers or in their 20s around that time. You can even use the Bloodraven again, who'd still be pretty old by that time though. They're using a couple different long-running storylines and characters to sort of tie all the different prequels and spin-offs together. One being the Bloodraven himself, just because of the way his powers work and how long he was physically alive, and the whole Valyrian dagger, the prophecy of the Prince who was promised in the Long Night. Personally, I do think that at some point we will see big-budget Robert's Rebellion, but they might wind up saving that to be one of the last prequels they tried to go to, just so they can actually do stuff earlier in the timeline before that, and sort of use it to close the loop on the timeline in the way they've been doing all these different shows in progression. Which is why I think it's more likely this unannounced project might be Blackfire Rebellion. They also talked a lot about really liking the idea of turning seasons around faster like they used to do, like one season per year, and being easier to do that when they didn't have as many special effects to deal with, which basically means dragons. And during the Blackfire Rebellion, there really aren't any dragons, so it's way easier for them to do the special effects, way cheaper for them too, and easier to turn it around faster. One of the other cool connections to what's happening this year is because we're getting Night of the Seven Kingdoms episodes probably closer to the fall, like the end of the summer, is that the Blackfire Rebellion is very important to those events. It precedes it by just a little bit, and basically during the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the realm is in a rebuilding mode where everybody is remembering the after effects of the Blackfire Rebellion and what it did to destroy the realm, kind of like Robert's Rebellion's relationship with the main Game of Thrones series, where you wind up with this giant war and then the realm having to deal with the aftermath of that and rebuilding in the after effects. Basically, same thing with Night of the Seven Kingdoms in Blackfire Rebellion. And because we're also in the middle of House of the Dragon, Blackfire Rebellion is another Targaryen civil war within the family, just for very different reasons with different sides. There are actually 4 separate Blackfire Rebellions, but the later ones were lesser ones throughout the timeline, but it took place over a course of like 30 to 40 years or so. The first one was the biggest and the bloodiest one, the one that they would probably do during a series. It took place in 196 AC, about 65 years after Dance of the Dragons on House of the Dragon, so not that long, but a good long while, between King Daemon II, representing the Iron Throne in House Targaryen. He was the legitimate born son who was sitting the Iron Throne during this. And on the other side, leading the opposition, was his bastard half-brother, Daemon Blackfire I of House Blackfire. They called his side the Blackfire Pretenders because they were made up of a lot of legitimized bastards of King Aegon IV. That was sort of the inciting event when he legitimized a bunch of royal bastards on his deathbed, which basically gave them a legal right to actually challenge a claim to the Iron Throne, whereas normally bastards don't have a claim to the Iron Throne. This actual first Blackfire Rebellion war only lasted for a single year, but the show would cover the rise of the main characters, the death of Aegon IV, the other inciting events that led to the war, the same way they've dealt with the Dance of the Dragons during House of the Dragon, where it's a relatively short time span that they stretch over about 3 to 4 seasons. House of the Dragon going to be 4 seasons, if that wasn't clear. So the actual war of the Blackfire Rebellion would probably cover like seasons 3 and 4 of that if they did it that way, so it'd have parity with the House of the Dragon, the way they broke those episodes up on the timeline. They could also use the later seasons, like the very last season, the last couple of episodes, to speed run the last couple Blackfire Rebellions because they were much smaller events and sort of wrapped up what eventually happened to House Blackfire in general and the survivors of Daemon Blackfire. All the Blackfire Rebellions covered about 5 generations of the Targaryen family in Daemon Blackfire's successors. It all started with Aegon IV, who gave birth to a true-born son with his queen Daenerys, named Daemon II, who he absolutely couldn't stand. Daemon grew up opposing Aegon's decisions, policies constantly, so he was definitely not his favorite son. Also had a true-born daughter named Daenerys. HBO would absolutely love to have another Daenerys on screen that they could trot out every single week. And because his marriage, his family life was so unhappy, he slept around a lot, like Robert Baratheon style, had a ton of bastards. Not all of them were legitimized or acknowledged. So when they acknowledge a bastard, it's basically them publicly saying, yes, this person is my bastard, whether or not they eventually legitimize them. Like, you can acknowledge a bastard without legitimizing them. Probably the best example of that is Jon Snow. Everybody publicly knew that he was the bastard of Ned Stark, even though that was technically Ned's lie. But Aegon IV's favorite son was Daemon I, his son with Princess Daena Targaryen, illegitimately, who was the daughter of Aegon III, Rhaenyra's oldest son here with Daemon on House the Dragon, like he's a little kid on the show right now, but he's Aegon's fourth uncle eventually. So the line of succession jumps around within the Targaryen family a couple times during this period. It gets pretty chaotic. All because Aegon III's oldest son, Daeron I, the one who conquered Dorne, succeeding him, died without any children. Then Daeron's brother succeeds him for a little while, and he winds up being the weirdo king, the one who famously locked his 3 sisters in the Maiden Vault, giving it the name Maiden Vault. He was called Baelor the Blessed. He's the one who died without any children after trying to fast for too long. So that's how the line of succession jumped from Aegon III's line to his younger brother, Viserys II, who's also currently a little kid on House of the Dragon right now, Rhaenyra's other son with Daemon. Aegon IV was Viserys' son. Jon Snow and Daenerys on the main show come from Aegon IV's line. If it wasn't clear, because House of the Dragon is on right now, Jon Snow and Daenerys come from Rhaenyra's line. Great-great-great-great-great-grandma bless. But Aegon IV was kind of like Robert Baratheon when it came to actually being a king. Like, he wasn't that particularly great of a king. He loved partying. He loved sleeping around, having bastards. On his deathbed, he legitimized most of his royal bastards. Daemon was his oldest and his favorite son. Everybody knew it publicly, even over his trueborn son, Daeron II, who obviously kind of hated him. He wound up giving Daemon Aegon the Conqueror's Valyrian sword Blackfire, which we've seen on House of the Dragon. I also have it here in this video here. Which after Aegon the Conqueror died, each Targaryen king would pass down to their successors. So if the king gave you Blackfire, the Valyrian sword, it was a sign that he wanted you to become the next king. And because Daemon had been legitimized, he formed House Blackfire. Bastards born in the Crownlands here are typically called Waters, so before this his name would have been Daemon Waters, but now it was Daemon Blackfire, and he had a legal claim to the Iron Throne. He's way more popular in the realm than his legitimate brother, Daeron II, so he tries to assert his claim over Daeron. That leads to the Blackfire Rebellion, where you have a bunch of the royal bastards that had just been legitimized all siding with Daemon against the legitimate side of the family. Basically another House of the Dragon scenario without a lot of dragons. In the aftermath of the First War, Daemon Blackfire's forces were defeated. They retreat to Essos to form the Golden Company, and over time, more Westerosi bastards would eventually go to Essos to join the Golden Company too. So a lot of the Golden Company are made up of famous Westerosi bastards, and people who were on the other side of losing wars. Really good example of that in A Song of Ice and Fire is a lot of people who are on the other side, like the Mad King's side of Robert's Rebellion, the losing side. A lot of them wound up either getting exiled or escaping to Essos and joining the Golden Company. Then over the next 37 years or so, Daemon and his eventual successors, like his sons and sons after that, came to try and take the Iron Throne by war again over and over, unsuccessfully ultimately. During the third Blackfire Rebellion, this is where we sort of tie things back around to like some common Easter eggs for all the prequels. That's when the Bloodraven wound up getting himself exiled over things that he did to the Wall, where he eventually became the Lord Commander, then left north of the Wall to become the Three-Eyed Raven eventually. Maester Aemond on the main show was also alive for all the Blackfire Rebellions, so there's a good chance we could also see him during the series, and he was also alive during the events of Night of the Seven Kingdoms, because that takes place right after the first Blackfire Rebellion, but before the second Blackfire Rebellion. So there's a whole lot of Easter eggs that we might wind up seeing on Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but a lot of those characters aren't like real huge parts of that story, so we'll see. HBO just really likes to have common Easter eggs, like familiar things show to show that sort of tie everything together loosely across the timeline. But everyone let me know in the comments if HBO is teasing an unannounced new prequel that they've never talked about before. What do you actually think it's for, if it's for something from the Targaryen history? Whatever it winds up being, of course I will do episode videos for it, but at the rate that they're going, with all the things that they've announced, they probably wouldn't actually end up making it for like 10 more years, so we'll see when it actually ends up happening. Just another reason to survive for the next several years so that you can actually see some of these episodes actually come to air. We'll probably get another Night of the Seven Kingdoms trailer in the next couple months. When they do, of course, I will do more videos for that, or if they have any big announcements. So if there are any big questions you also have or bonus videos that you want me to do, let me know in the comments. Everybody click here for my Night of the Seven Kingdoms trailer video, and click here for all my House of the Dragon Season 3 videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.